Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. Now, last Friday, the nation was thrown into chaos a little bit because we had some bomb threats across the nation in schools. This morning, we're going to be checking and putting TUTA inside the spotlight to respond to some of these things that have been happening in our nation's schools.
Now, this morning, we're checking in with the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, or TUTA, Mr. Martin Lum Kin, as they respond to the bomb threat that was emailed to several schools last week, Friday. Martin, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Now.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And let me extend best wishes to all our journalists on World Press Freedom Day.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We'll keep doing the needful. Mr. Lum Kin, I'm so happy to have you in this morning because we've been talking about the bomb threat from several angles. We had the cybercrime chime in terms of the effects it may have on it. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on it. But first of all, your initial thoughts on what happened last week, Friday.
Well, TUTA would have made a statement in terms of condemning the persons who would have tried to disrupt the education system at that point in time, for whatever reason, selfish reason, whether it be prank, joke, or so forth. But TUTA was quite concerned that a number of our schools were affected, had to be shut down, and would have caused chaos not only within the schools, but I passed through Shogunas and the traffic gridlock that it caused. Parents having to go collect their children, and I must say, there are teachers who had children at schools as well too. So some of the schools that were not directly involved with the bomb threat had to be thrown in a bit of disarray because their parents there, quite concerned, teachers, had to leave and collect their children.
Yeah.
This had played on our teachers psychologically, because you can imagine, when I was growing up in secondary school, we got a couple of bomb threats over the telephone, and we generally took it as pranks. In this day and age, we cannot take that for granted at all. The security, the whole overall running of the school, we have to make sure that all occupants are safe and do not take it as a joke.
Yeah. Now, Martin, I know that we would have received initially a figure of 55, but we've been hearing it's upwards of that. Is there any sort of confirmed figure in terms of how many schools would have not only been affected, but would have more so received that email bomb threat?
We haven't gotten the final figures yet. We're still reaching out. So today we have a meeting of our central executive, and that's the representative of each district. And I'm hoping to get a clearer picture as to how it affected schools throughout Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, I know that, for example, the students at that point in time would have been going through their orals for CAPE and CSEC. Are teachers ready to, start the process over to ensure that children do finish their pre-exams?
I am confident that our teachers are quite prepared, whatever delay that may come to them, that they are prepared to make up for what is taking place. Although this plays psychologically on them, every time they go back to school, they're wondering, would it happen again? What would happen in this case? But I know our teachers are prepared, and they are willing, and they always seek the best interests of our students.
Now, you keep mentioning the distress, that mental distress that these teachers would have undergone because of what happened last week. Is it that TUTA is going to be providing that counseling? Is it the Ministry of Education? Is there a partnership that's going to take place to ensure our teachers are mentally ready to step into the classroom and, to teach our students?
So TUTA is not the organization that will provide. We will seek the assistance of Ministry of Education, and we remind our teachers that they have the employee assistance program that they can access, which is being provided through the Ministry of Education, and they can access that as well as the Student Support Services Division. There are guidance counselors. However, at this point, I must make a plug for Student Support Services Division. They are understaffed and under-resourced. They play a vital role in the education system, and we always ask the Ministry of Education to ensure that they are resourced so that they can carry out their mandate. However, when we talk about Student Support Services Division and the guidance counselors, they can only go so far due to their qualifications. We need to have more support in terms of child psychologists, sociologists, all of the requisite personnel to assist as well too. We understand, and we always tell the ministry, we understand the financial constraints to which they go through, and we understand, but that's no comfort to our members and to the students. And if, I always say, if the government needs to do something, they will find the money. And to us, in TUTA, the education system getting the largest share of the budget should be allowed to have the support going in, because education is key to our nation.
Yeah. Now, in terms of protocol, because I found it was interesting, Martin, that you mentioned even when you were in school, you would receive some sort of threat, right? And so here we have it emailed. So same thing, although different platforms, same thing is happening. Are there certain protocols in schools that would deal with a situation like this?
Yes, there are protocols, and there is the crisis management team. So whenever there is any sort of issues, the crisis management team is supposed to kick in, where certain members of that team have responsibilities. So you can imagine it takes the responsibility of the administrator to do this call, and so you have persons assigned to that. And once the administrator or even the clerk would have received the email, then the crisis management team is called into action. And so there are protocols, and I have been given the assurance that all schools, even primary schools, have protocols for crisis as well as for natural disasters as well too.
Yeah. Do you see us going at a certain level? So, for example, I'll give you one. We have a lot of school shootings in the U.S., and because of that, they have drills. So what happens if it is you hear an alarm or somebody opens your door, that kind of thing? Do we need to take it to that extent where we have to come in schools now and tell our children, okay, if there's a threat, this is what you need to do?
That's quite interesting. Could you remember last term, Rose Hill RC Primary School, that video?
Yes.
And there are schools within that area, what we call hotspots. They have instituted their drills whenever they hear gunshots. So you were hearing gunshots in the background. You're seeing the teacher trying to be as calm as possible, having the children duck and go down.
Yeah.
So yes, depending on the situations, depending on the locations, there are several drills that there are standard drills, yeah, but depending on where. So it's becoming quite alarming now, the number of schools that may have to institute those types of drills.
Yeah. How confident are you that the police service can investigate and determine where the email come from? And I say that because there was one particular media organization who reached out to the company Beeble, right, with that server, Beeble, and they actually said that during that period they had a hacker. Their system was hacked, and so they have gotten reports of people emailing them and telling them that they have been getting unusual activity on their site. So with that information, them saying it's hacked, the police has now launched an investigation. Do you think we're going to get anywhere with the investigation in terms of finding out where that email originated from?
I am always hopeful, and I'm hopeful that the cybercrimes unit of the TTPS will be able to get some leeway and have someone brought to justice for this, because it cannot be allowed to blossom and bloom, because if they know they get through, then for whatever reason they're going to try it again.
Yeah.
And I know that technology is such that, yes, we have hackers, but there are ethical hackers as well too, who assist companies in finding ways to strengthen their security, but also to trace these hackers as well too. And so I'm hopeful that the TTPS, I'm waiting for the result of this investigation. TUTA is awaiting that, so that, you know, we can get a sense, our schools can get a sense that, you know, they're on the ball and that they are protected as well too. So we also look forward to the ICT unit of the Ministry of Education also strengthening some of the protocols in terms of ICTs as well.
And just to confirm, if all schools were affected in terms of secondary, primary, and ECCE, were all schools affected with that email bomb threat?
I am not certain about ECCE, but I know there are schools, mainly secondary schools, and there were some primary schools as well. Let's
go back to secondary schools, because what was happening Friday as well was that attack on the security officials at Belmont Secondary School. Can you share exactly what happened in that situation?
So while in the midst of the bomb threats, we got a report from our officials in Port of Spain that there were 2 persons who breached the security of the Belmont Secondary School. We were visiting schools in Central at the time, both by the second vice president, our officer, and myself. And we had to leave that and go up to Belmont Secondary. By the time we arrived, the majority of the staff would have left. The school was dismissed. Children were being picked up by parents or whatever transportation.
Right.
As we arrived, I saw police officers with these large firearms. And you know from that it's something serious. That in itself, yes, they are there to protect. But you as an individual, you felt a sense of surreal when you walked in there. And when we got the opportunity to speak with the staff representative and the remainder of the staff, we got a sense of what had taken place. We briefly spoke with the school safety officer. That was the person who accosted the two persons on the compound. And he was threatened. His life was threatened.
So when the two gentlemen came onto the compound, he would have said, no, we need to leave or something like that?
It is believed that they came from the Lady Young roadside.
Okay.
And they entered the compound for whatever reason, we don't know. They were wearing a hoodie and a mask. The school safety officer felt that they were students, so he went to speak to them to get them to go back to class, and that is when he realized one of them had a firearm. The other one was telling him, why you don't pop him in his head? So you could imagine the psychological effect that this gentleman is going through. He had to turn his back, and they eventually ran off, made a hole in the fence on the other side, and escaped. All that time, teaching is taking place. Some of the teachers saw the assailants and realized that something was going on, so they raised the alarm with the administration. But some of the students as well would have witnessed this as, this whole incident. And you could imagine the threat and the safety now. I'm saying this, that the administrators reported to us that this incident could have been avoided if the security perimeter along the Lady Young Road was fixed. There were a couple of vehicles that breached that fence a couple of years ago, and nothing was done after that. Teachers, knowing that, they tried their best to continue teaching, but now they're saying enough is enough. With this latest threat, they feel that their safety would be compromised, and they cannot perform the best way that they can to help these students, because that's their love right now.
And I know the Education Minister would have said in Parliament yesterday that they have beefed up security at the school. And I say that because I want to address another issue as well. There's a rat infestation, I believe, at, is it Dinsley Government?
Yeah.
I know that, for example, I believe that one of the reports we've gotten is that parents would have sent their children to school last week Monday, and the doors to the school compound was closed. The security officer was not allowing any children to come onto the school compound, and so it is deemed closed in that sense, because every time they send their children, security is saying the school is closed, and so no one is allowed to enter. What's the update on that? Are teachers allowed to close the school compound? Is it that they can't close it if there's a process in place? Like how does that work?
Through the OSH Act, if they feel that their health and safety are threatened, there's a procedure to which they go through in terms of there's supposed to be a safety committee, and they will file the refusal to work.
Right.
Because under any threat of safety and security, the workers are allowed to go through the process of, so they don't just walk off the plant just so. There are certain steps that they take. The safety committee has to ensure that certain things were brought to their attention and certain remedial were tried. And however, it cannot be continued, then they do the refusal to work. Each person has to sign that refusal to work.
So has this been done in that sense?
It has been.
It has been.
It has been, because TUTA recognizes, and I think the nation recognizes, the threat when you have rat infestation to the health of persons who can come in contact with either the feces or the rat drop-ins and so.
So while that process is ongoing, the school is closed until the issue can be dealt with?
Yes, in terms of the refusal to work, the workers would not occupy the workplace until the process carried through. The OSH agency sends the inspectorate. They do their investigation, make their recommendation whether it's a threat or not, and if it is a threat, they make recommendations to the authorities as to what needs to be fixed. At that time, the workers do not occupy the compound. And we are also saying TUTA is at this point not agreeing with online engagement because we have started the conversation with the Ministry of Education. There isn't a policy for online engagement. We are saying it cannot be ad hoc. You must have a policy that spells out certain things. You must ensure that it doesn't infringe on the rights of our members.
Right.
And so once we get that, because we are not against online engagement, we have realized since the COVID pandemic, going through the lockdown, that ICTs and sometimes online engagement is necessary. But you can't tell me you close, say no water this morning, so by recess time you dismiss. You're telling teachers, when you go home, go online to engage your children. Yeah. It can't be like that.
Totally understand what you say, Mr. Lum Kin, and I'm hoping that we get the Education Minister on, of course, to address some of the concerns that you raised. Sure. But let me thank you so much for coming in. I did tell you about that Tranquil video, but I don't think you've seen it as yet.
Not.
So I'll excuse you from it because I know we also have to verify if it's current, if it's certain things. So I wouldn't hold you to that. But let me thank you so much for coming in this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you in, and next time we will continue the discussion.
Sure,
so thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. All the best.
And that was President of TUTA, Mr. Martin Lum Kin, just giving us some updates about the emailed bomb threat that took place last week, Friday, and of course some other concerns that's happening to the schools in Trinidad and Tobago. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.